Okay, it's time to finish what we started here. Act 5, Scene 1. So we start off with these two guys called clowns in the stage directions, but they're actually grave diggers and not too funny. They're digging Ophelia's grave while discussing her death. They note that the fact that she's being given a Christian burial is interesting as she killed herself. One clown argues no, she didn't drown herself, the water drowned her. But the other clown has none of that, and eventually they both conclude that if Ophelia hadn't been a gentlewoman, she would have been given an unhonorable burial. There's then some banter about Adam of the Bible, and digging, and jobs, and death. Then, as Hamlet and Horatio enter, one clown tells the other to go get him some liquor. The remaining clown doesn't notice our protagonist, though, and he keeps digging and starts to sing. Hammy finds this outrageous for some reason and tells Horatio so. Then the clown tosses a skull out of the hole, and Hamlet talks about how this gravedigger is showing no respect to the dead. Little side note here, this whole section is a good thing to look at in addition to the scene about death from Act 4 if you're writing a paper. Finally, Hamlet addresses the clown, and we get the first time Hammy's verbal wit has been matched yet. They go back and forth with sharp comments while Hamlet keeps trying to figure out whose grave it is. The clown just reveals it's a woman's grave, and Hamlet makes a comment to Horatio about how ridiculous this commoner is being. Hammy then tries to get information out of the clown concerning what was publicly known about himself. Then, for some reason, they talk about how long it takes a body to rot. Then the gravedigger hands Hammy a skull as example, and says it had been Yorick, the king's jester. Hamlet takes the skull and delivers the line some of you may know. Alas, poor Yorick, I knew him, Horatio. Then he taunts the skull as the jokes it once protected are of no worth now. Alright, I'm just going to say it one more time. This stuff right here, this is like essay-worthy material on death. Hamlet asks if Alexander the Great looks like this, then says, well, if he died, then he was buried, and once buried, turned to dust, and we use dust to make loam, and we use loam to stop barrels, so same can be said for Caesar. His remains may be doing some menial task in their dust form. Then Ophelia's funeral procession enters, and Hamlet and Horatio observe from hiding. Hilarities is talking to the priest about getting a better funeral, but the priest is like, man, we shouldn't even have buried her like this, she died evilly. Hilarities basically ignores this and can't take the thought of Ophelia being dead, so he jumps in the grave with her and is all like, bury me, I'm basically dead now. Now, Hammy isn't about to be one up, so he jumps in the grave too and is like, oh yeah, well I'm sad too guys, and Hilarities is like, hey, and the two start fist fighting. After the fight is broken up, Hamlet asserts that he loved Ophelia more than 40,000 brothers ever could have. He says a few more things asserting his love, then leaves with Horatio after saying, the dog will have his day. Then Claudius turns to Hilarities and says, hey, be patient. Remember, our plan to kill him soon, and end Scene 1. Alrighty, so Scene 2 gives us Hammy and Horatio talking. This is where Hamlet reveals that he read the letter that had been sent with him to England and learned he was going to be killed once he got there. Then he also reveals that he wrote a new letter saying the same thing, except Rosie and Gildy were to be killed. Horatio comments that this is kind of mean to those two guys, but Hamlet says he doesn't care. It was their own fault for getting mixed up in this anyway. And the real point here is that the king is evil. Then we get a new character showing up, Osric. He's just here to deliver a message, but it takes him so long to do it between Hamlet talking crazy and his own misinterpretation of words. But eventually he reveals that the king has wagered some horses and stuff on Hamlet winning a duel between him and Hilarities. Hamlet accepts and Osric leaves. Hammy then makes some comment about Osric being a lapdog. Then a lord shows up and tells the boys that it's time for the duel. If Hammy is ready, then he leaves. Horatio tells Hammy he's going to lose, and Hamlet's like, "O ye of little faith, I've been practicing." And then it's time, and the entire living cast gathers. Before they fight, Hammy tries to set things right with Hilarities, and Hilarities seems to pardon Hamlet. Then Osric hands them the foils. The king says that if Hamlet wins without getting hit, everyone shall drink a toast in celebration, and then the fight begins. Hamlet gets the initial hit on Hilarities, so the king tries to get him to drink the poisoned cup, but Hammy's having none of that. Then Hamlet gets a second hit, and the queen grows faint, and she takes a drink from the poisoned cup. The duel continues, with Hilarities unfairly stabbing Hamlet, and then Hamlet taking that weapon and stabbing Hilarities. Then the queen falls over and reveals that the drink was poisoned, and she dies. Hilarities reveals that the sword is poisoned too, and both he and Hamlet will die soon. Oh, and this was all the king's idea. So naturally, Hamlet stabs Claudius and calls him a murdering, incestuous Dane, and the king dies. Hilarities decides this is a just death, as it was Claudius's poison anyway, and asks Hammy to forgive him. Then he dies, and Hamlet forgives him. Hamlet then charges Horatio to rule, but Horatio ain't about that, so he tries to drink the poison, but Hamlet doesn't let him. Then there's some loud noise, and surprise, it's Fortinbras! Bet you guys didn't see that one coming, huh? So then Hamlet tells Horatio to help Fortinbras out, and then he dies, and Horatio says, "Good night, sweet prince." So then Fortinbras and some ambassadors from England show up in the room, and Horatio explains, hey, I didn't kill everyone, I swear. They all killed each other. And I'll tell the full story soon. Fortinbras buys this and says he's excited to hear the story. Then the bodies are carried out to the stage so Horatio can stand before all and tell the story of this tragedy of Hamlet, Prince of Denmark.